Looks like we have a pretty good number of our attendees logged on. We'll go ahead and get started and people can jump on as they're able to. Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking some time to meet with us in regards to the Clearwater Junction project that we are just getting started on. My name is Christine Fife and I'll be guiding us through this open house today. I work with Big Sky Public Relations and we work with MDT on projects like this one to solicit comments from the public and to help with communications on projects and studies just like this one. And this will be a short presentation with the primary focus of providing information regarding the needs for this study and to give you all an opportunity to provide some input. So joining me this afternoon are Bob Vosen, Jacqueline Smith, Steve Felix, and Cameron Cloberdance from the Montana Department of Transportation, and April Girth of Robert Pesha and Associates. Would you all just take a moment to introduce yourselves?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bob Vosen. I'm the district administrator for District 1 with the Montana Department of Transportation, which includes the Clearwater Junction area. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us. Appreciate the opportunity to have some interaction with those of you in attendance. So again, thank you very much. Moving on next, Steve. Is Steve? I don't see Steve being here. Jacqueline.
Thanks, Bob. My name is Jacqueline Smith, and I am the pre-construction engineer for District 1. So I oversee more of the design activities related to our projects. Cameron, do you want to go next?
Thank you. My name is Cameron Cloberdance. I work in MDT's Consultant Design Bureau. And my role with this project is to kind of coordinate the effort between the consultants and MDT personnel as we're developing this project. Thanks. And I guess I'll turn it back over to April to introduce herself. April, you're still muted. So if you're talking, we can't hear you.
All right. Sorry about that. Hello, everyone. I'm April Girth, and I work for Robert Pesha and Associates, the engineering firm hired by MDT to perform the initial study for the intersection and the final design.
Thank you. I also want to introduce Katie Cleets from Big Sky Public Relations. She'll be monitoring any questions or comments that come through the Q&A system. Katie, would you please take a moment to introduce yourself and let us know how that question and answer will work?
Thanks, Christine. Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Katie Cleets, also with Big Sky Public Relations, helping to support Christine in her work as the Communications Project Manager for Clearwater Junction. So as we continue through today's presentation, we certainly want to hear your questions, the thoughts that you have, or anything that this team can further clarify. And for us to be able to throw that back out to the team and have a discussion, you will need to add your question or your comment into that Q&A system. It's at the bottom of your screen. It looks like 2 chat bubbles. If you type in anything during that time, we can go ahead and queue things up so that we're ready to rock and roll by the time that we wrap up the presentation. And then we can certainly keep everything moving through as we finalize the presentation for the rest of the day.
Oh, I was on mute too. Thanks, Katie. We'll be conducting a survey throughout this meeting, so you'll have the opportunity to participate in that survey and provide some valuable information about the intersection and your your primary concerns with what's happening there at the Clearwater Junction intersection. The information that you provide today will be used and considered as the project team makes a determination on the best alternative for this intersection. I also want to mention that we'll be recording this meeting and it will be made available for viewing on the project webpage. Additionally, this meeting I think is being conducted with the use of live captioning. And if you're having any difficulty with those live captioning services, please let us know. We really appreciate everyone who's taken time to join us today. I'm now going to turn things over to Bob, and he's going to get us started on a basic overview of the project. Bob?
Thanks, Christine. Yeah, so a basic overview of the project. I assume that everybody that has joined us is familiar with the project, but the Clearwater Junction is the intersection of Highway 83 and Highway 200, it's a main connection point for travelers traveling between Helena, Missoula, Kalispell, Great Falls, and many other small towns in between all those larger communities. It's also a thoroughfare for many commercial and industrial vehicles. So this is it's a key intersection in Western Montana. It's also home to one of the most frequently visited boat check stations in Montana, a weigh station located right there, and then there's also a busy convenience store. So we recognize that this is a very well used junction between key highways for those folks that are traveling throughout various areas in Western Montana. So Christine, I think you have a survey question for us.
I do. Thanks, Bob. We are going to jump to, well, hopefully I'm going to be able to find my polling questions here. Well, maybe not. We may have to come back to that in just a moment. Let's move to slide 3, and I'm going to figure out this polling situation, and I'll have April talk to you about why this intersection was selected for this study.
Thanks, Christine. As you'll see in a few moments, there have been a number of crashes in the vicinity of the Clearwater Junction intersection, including one fatality. So MDT identified this as a crash cluster and that needed investigation to improve the safety of the area. And additionally, traffic has been noted to queue some way up Highway 90 or Highway 83 during the busy summer months, which is causing delay to the travelers. So MDT began preparing the preliminary investigation of the intersection in 2018 and continued until late 2020. And at that time, they contracted with Robert Petcha and Associates to initiate this study to analyze options and choose a course of action to improve safety in the area. But before we can develop any improvement options for the intersection, we need to identify all of the issues and all of the constraints. And so to do that, we conducted a number of studies that Jacqueline will discuss a little bit later. But one of the studies investigated the past crash history and the traffic volumes in the intersection, which I want to talk about a little bit right now. We counted the number of cars using the intersection and the adjacent businesses and facilities, and use this data to predict any future use. So the traffic volume in the intersection has grown a little bit over 2% per year in the past 5 years. So if this rate continues, by the year 2045, during the summer months, we could see as many as 12,000 vehicles each day passing through the intersection. And during the summer months and the holiday weekends, the long lines of cars can accumulate on Highway 83, which is causing some delays. And the local business owners and staff at the boat check station, you know, they've all reported that they've had many close calls and minor crashes, as well as difficulties turning left onto Montana 83 from the gas station when traffic is really heavy and it kind of backs up along Highway 83. And they also noted some high speeds on Montana 200 that were of concern. So with these issues, you know, we kind of wanted to get your opinion on what you think is going on in the intersection. Christine, are you able to pop up that survey question?
I'm not able to yet, but I'm hoping within the next couple of minutes, I'll be able to have those survey questions up. So let's move to maybe some crash statistics, and then hopefully by then I will have those polling questions ready.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Christine. So as we noted previously, there is a cluster of crashes in the area of the intersection, and it is the reason that MDT began investigating the intersection for possible improvements. So for 16 years, between 2003 and 2019, 35 crashes were reported by the Highway Patrol in the intersection. And of these crashes, 22 were, you know, pretty minor fender benders and resulted in property damage only. 12 of the crashes resulted in injuries, and we did have one fatality in the area. So of the 35 reported crashes, 43 occurred during the summer months. Can you switch to the next slide, Christine?
No.
Okay, we'll continue. 37% were in the winter months, and 17% were during the spring and the fall. So what this indicates to us is that we're not seeing a predominance of crashes just in the winter when you'd expect it with icy conditions. We're seeing them kind of throughout the whole year, and that's contributing to the crashes is the high, heavy visitor traffic in the summer. And this heavy summer traffic and the absence of any traffic control really right now, except for a stop sign, may be a significant factor in the number of crashes that we're experiencing in the intersection. Okay, so I'm assuming we're still not there, Christine, for another survey. No,
I am
okay,
not able to.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and have Jacqueline Smith from MDT talk about the study that we're undertaking itself.
Thank you, April. So I'm sure some of you are asking the question in your heads, well, why are you doing a study if you've already looked at this from 2018 to 2020? And the answer to that is that during that 2 years between 2018 and 2020, it was more a look at the past. Are we seeing crashes out there? And if so, is there an identifiable crash trend, or is there a crash cluster occurring at this intersection? And we were able to determine that, yes, this does need to be looked at more. So that is why we're at this study. This study, we're partnering with Robert Pesce and Associates to be the design consultant and do the conditions investigation that's out there. Right now, we do not have an identified solution for this intersection or the adjacent intersections with the highway. We're focused right now on collecting the data in the surrounding area. So this includes projecting what traffic volumes we'll see in the future, as April was highlighting, seeing what kind of environmental constraints we have out there, what are the predominant movements out there, do you got traffic heavier on one road versus another, is there more left turns, more right turns, just really focusing on what are the needs that we see in the future. And with this, we will be doing an intersection control evaluation, and or the acronym for it is ICE. And with this ICE, we look at all the possible options that are out there and evaluate all of them in the different areas that we see as constraints. So environmental, traffic, public input, cost, and find which one best suits the needs or requirements that are at this site. So public involvement, I just want to emphasize, is going to be very important all the way through this. So this is our initial outreach right now, but it is not going to be the last of it. We plan on continuing to reach out to the public and also seeking input from you as we continue to move through this evaluation. And then once an option is selected, continuing to get input as we go through the design. Another important thing that we will need to look at is the cost of each alternative. This project is being funded most likely with safety funds, and so we need to make sure that we can fund whatever solution is identified with the safety funds within a reasonable time frame. Christine, how is that study going, or the survey going?
I am hoping to have all the survey questions ready at the end of the presentation. So if you want to jump to timeline, then we can do the survey at the end.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So here's the timeline that we're projecting for this study and the development for the whole project. Here we are on the far left side in the study phase. Once we have identified the preferred option, we will move ahead into the design phase and focus on designing the preferred alternative. With a known alternative, we can then get a better idea on how much the project's going to cost. At this time, we don't know. We just don't know what the scope of the work is. So we need to just keep collecting the information and evaluating what the needs are out there. So once we have the funding and the design in place, we will be able to let the project for construction. As far as specific dates, the study phase we expect to have wrapped up in 2022. This is dependent on just with the knowns we have right now. If any unforeseen issues come up with data collection, it could be extended. Once we then have the identified alternative, we can have a better idea of what activities we need to complete for the design, and then we can establish how long it'll take to develop the design and let it for construction. So we are still several years out before we see anything as far as construction goes.
Thanks,
Christine?
Kathleen.
Okay. Did you want to carry on?
Yeah, I think we're going to see if we can launch this poll. It's just 5 short questions. So if those of you who are attending today can take a moment to respond to this poll. There are just a few questions, but we would love to know a little bit about where you live in relation to the intersection, how frequently you travel through the intersection, some questions about traffic and safety, and then ultimately what your primary concerns are at the intersection. So if you would just take a moment and respond to those questions, we would really appreciate your input. Thank you for taking time to participate in the poll. We're going to leave it up just for a couple more minutes. And while we're doing that, and while you have some time to participate in that poll, I just want to turn some time to Katie. Do we have any questions that the project team can address at this point?
Hey, Christine, we don't have any open questions currently, but just as a reminder for anybody who may have already completed the poll, or as you're looking at that poll, you do have additional questions or concerns based on what we've heard today, you can add those into that Q&A system by typing that into the Q&A box to be redundant. Again, it looks like 2 chat bubbles, and we're happy to address those for the rest of our time.
Thanks, Katie. I appreciate that. We're just going to give one more sec on this poll. And while we're doing that, I just want to let you know, this is my contact information that you're seeing on the screen. So if you don't have any questions today, but you do have comments or something comes up, or you'd just like to talk to me offline, this is how I can be reached. And I'd be happy to address any questions or take comments and pass those along to the project team throughout the course of this study. And of course, today's presentation is not the end of this study. So we are happy to hear from you throughout the course of this study. So please don't hesitate to reach out even after we've concluded these open house sessions.
Thanks, Christine. We actually did have one question come through. So Bob, I might turn this over to you and you could pass along if needed. But David is asking, if this is still in the study phase, why is there an abundance of survey stakes in the area lately?
So part of the study is to, and I am not familiar with what all of the stakes are that are out there. I am going to assume that we are in the process the study requires to make sure that we have a clear understanding of where right-of-way is, where the different property boundaries are, and make sure that we have accurate data for all the location out there. So I'm going to assume that's what it is, but I'm going to ask Jacqueline that maybe she has more information than I.
I do not, and I hate to do this, but I'm also going to pass it on to April, since they are the consultant on this project, and see if she is aware of any field activity that either her or the sub-consultants have been working on in the area.
Sure, thanks, Jacqueline. We have been out there and for several different reasons. We've done a wetland investigation, so if for any wetlands that we have found, you may see little flags out around them, and that helps us to determine where the wetland limits are. The other thing that we've done is we've drilled. So if you've been passing through recently, you might see the big drill rigs out, and they're just boring down into the ground to get a sample of the materials that are in the ground right now, so that when we develop our new surfacing sections, our new plant mix, or the asphalt and the gravels, we know what the quality of the materials underneath are, so we can design that. And you'll probably see stakes from those borings out there. And then to kind of confirm what Bob said, we have some right-of-way survey that was done, so we can establish where everybody's parcels are. And we've also had the utilities, underground utilities located. And so when that company comes out to locate those, they often paint the ground or sticks flags or stakes out for that as well. So there's been a number of activities out there, and you may be seeing the results of any one of those.
That's great. Thank you, April, for being so comprehensive. And David, if that didn't fully answer your question or you have anything more specific, please feel free to follow up in that chat. We're more than happy to address it. And currently, those are the questions that we had in the queue. We did have a couple of comments come through, which we really appreciate, and we'll be sure to include those with the rest of our public comments. So thank you, everyone, for passing those along.
Thank you, Katie. I do want to share the results of our poll, just so that everyone can see how those are shaking out. It looks like a fair number of you live fairly closely to the intersection, and you're the folks that we want to reach, those who live near the intersection and those who drive through it regularly. And it looks like you are driving through this intersection regularly, so you are familiar with the concerns there. And so again, we appreciate your participation in this poll. Your experience with traffic at the intersection is a bit mixed. It seems that some are very concerned about the traffic volumes, and some have seen the traffic volumes but feel that it is manageable at this time. And primary cause of crashes, looks like a lot of you believe that absent-minded drivers are primarily the cause of those crashes, in addition to high traffic numbers. And finally, your primary concerns are access and high traffic volumes. So I just really appreciate you taking time to share that feedback, and that information is valuable for the project team as we move forward on this project. Again, if we don't have any additional questions, please feel free to contact me offline or anytime throughout this project to share comments or questions, and we're happy to address those. And if there are no additional questions, I'll just thank you for your time, and I appreciate you taking time and being concerned about this intersection and for participating in our open house today. We will have another session of this open house at 5:30 this evening. If you'd like to join us again, or if you know of someone who wanted to participate in this and wasn't able to join us this afternoon, we'd love to see them this evening. So again, thank you very much for meeting with us, and I hope you all have a lovely afternoon.